We have breaking news as Jacob Trouba's time in New York has officially come to an end as the New York Rangers have traded him to the Anaheim Ducks. And the trade itself will shock Rangers fans. And I believe it's safe to say that Chris Drury's shakeup has only just begun. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 70% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to do yourself a favor, it's free. Hit that subscribe button and you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. And that's right, it is official. I had a video this morning about, obviously it looked like the Rangers were going to place Jacob Trouba on waivers, and now we were all standing around waiting for 2 o'clock anxiously to see if he was going to be put on waivers. And no, he was not put on waivers. So clearly there was a trade to be worked out, and that is exactly what happened here. And now at the time I am making this video, the trade call has not officially gone through, but you're starting to see everybody start to report on it. Multiple reporters have it. Pierre LeBrun has it. Elliot Friedman, we have some stuff from him. Molly Walker, Vince Mercogliano, everybody's in on it. Everybody knows that the trade has gone down, and it is obviously a huge one for the New York Rangers. They offload all $8 million of Jacob Trouba's salary that they can play with, and we'll get to what they can do with that later in the video. But this is huge. Jacob Trouba, his time in New York has officially come to an end. The whole saga that went through this summer into the season, the poor play, Chris Drury has put his foot down. And, like he said last week, we all thought it was just kind of, a wake-up call, something he was just throwing out there that actually backfired. That is not the case. At this point in time, it looks like this is actually just the beginning for the New York Rangers and Chris Drury. I believe that he is going to make a few more very interesting moves, but one thing is for sure, this is a new era in New York, or at least just the tipping point of a new era coming to New York and the New York Rangers, because it has to. This core has not been working, and this was it. And I believe that, Chris Drury wanted it to be it last summer, as soon as, May and June. So very interesting. And obviously in return, not too much. You get a 4th round pick, which is pretty surprising for, the Ducks taking on the entire $4 million salary. And obviously Vakinin here, I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce his name. I'm sure we'll get very accustomed to him over the next little while because, yes, he has spent time in the NHL. We'll get to him in a second. But this is from Larry Brooks and how it all kind of broke down. And obviously Larry Brooks has been in the, the center of a lot of conversations today. I'll just put it that way. And we're going to have another video on that, on some Brady Tkachuk stuff. We will have another video on that. Again, I think that this Jacob Trouba trade is just the tip of the iceberg at this point. But the Post has learned, again, this was this morning, that Drury spoke to Trouba multiple times this week in the break in between games, both as part of a group and individually, and they talked one-on-one this morning. So clearly this morning, something happened in a conversation that they had where they obviously came to a bit of an agreement where it was like, hey, you know what, if you find a suitable trade partner, I will move. And it came to the type of situation where if Jacob Trouba wasn't, going to accept a trade or waive his no trade clause, they were going to put him on waivers at 2 o'clock. And that's kind of what everyone was waiting around for. And when he was not put on waivers, that was the signal that this guy is going to get traded today. And that's exactly what happened. And I want to touch on this quickly because I didn't touch on it in my video earlier. At the end of the day, Jacob Trouba is a good person, right? You can say what you want about him on the ice, but he's a great person. He was a good leader, right, for the New York Rangers. Obviously, maybe not so much this season because of everything that happened during the summer, but he was a good leader in the community, all that stuff. We saw exactly what Jacob Trouba did, and he embraced being a New York Ranger, especially when he first got here. So I think that just has to be acknowledged that, yes, he did do that, and he wanted to win with this team, but unfortunately, Father Time waits for nobody, and it looks like that has passed with this core group of players, and they had to make some moves there. And again, his $8 million was looking like an absolute anchor, especially the way the team has been playing so far this season. So just wanted to put that out there. And like Joe says, this is a really sad way for Trouba to kind of go out here where he's like forced out, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But at the end of the day, like I've been saying, this is a business. Jacob Trouba has been saying, I understand it's a business, all that stuff. But you know what? You can understand the other side of things. And speaking of the other side of things, in terms of decision making, we have some insight from Peter Laviolette as to how this unfolded and that he did actually have input into this. And he said, Chris Drury and I are together in the decision. He's a good person and a good player, a good leader. We're not playing well right now. When you're not having the success you want on the ice, there has to be a direction that moves differently. So this is the direction that I made. So clearly they were having conversations all week. I said, if we got to Friday, if we got to this game against the Pittsburgh Penguins and there was no change, it would be an absolute travesty at this point. And I think a lot of Rangers fans were thinking, you know what, there was no way there's going to be change. It's going to be status quo. No, there was change, and I think that, you know, it had to be done. It absolutely had to be done. And we have some other comments from other players as well. This is Zibanejad on Jacob Trouba. This was this morning. I should also mention before I get into this that Chris Kreider was asked as well about Jacob Trouba, and he declined to comment on Jacob Trouba and that he would want to talk about it another time because obviously everything was really fresh and emotional. So I did want to bring that up. And Mika Zibanejad went on to say that that's a decision between the team and him. From what I'm understanding, as a player, as a teammate, as a friend, and a human being, we love him to death. And finally, from Jonathan Quick, I can't say enough about Jacob Trouba and what he's meant to this team and this locker room overall. He's a great person, great teammate, great captain, wishing him the best with dealing with all this stuff. So I'm pretty glad that a lot of the New York Rangers, you know, came out and said all those things because, yes, they're all true. But at the end of the day, this is a business. The team has to win, and they weren't getting it done, and they needed to free up $8 million worth of cap space to be able to have some flexibility. And there's a couple guys that could be on the way out as well. Ryan Lindgren could be on the way out, right? We'll get to that in a different video. And in terms of the captaincy, I thought this was interesting from Phil Kosher as everything was kind of going down today. He goes, in all seriousness, it actually might be in the New York Rangers' best interest to name another captain fairly quickly, given the emotional impact this will have. Gives the team someone to rally around quickly instead of flapping in the wind. And I think that's very interesting because obviously we just heard from, you know what, Peter Laviolette as to why that happened. The fallout, you know, Mika Zibanejad saying he's a great person, he's going to miss him. Obviously, Jonathan Quick, the same type of sentiment, and a bunch of other players as well. And obviously Chris Kreider saying that it was too fresh to even comment on. So I wonder if this is true. Personally, I'm not sure if this is the route they should go right away, but I do understand that it could galvanize the team in a way where if you name somebody else the captain, you're saying, okay, this is the leader now. This is a new era. Let's go after it. Let's get it. To me, if you name a guy like maybe Trocheck, who might be first in line in a lot of fans' eyes, captain right now, he's a little bit older. I feel like at this point in time, we're starting to turn the page a little bit. We know it's Alexis Lafreniere's team. We know it's going to be Will Cooley's team. These guys, right? I'm not saying they're necessarily captain material at this point, but I'm not sure if you name a captain right away. Maybe I'll change my mind in a couple of days' time. Who knows? But I do understand what Phil's saying, and I think that is an interesting concept that it could get the team to rally around them right away. And a guy, you know, I think it would be interesting if they made another trade and there's a couple new guys who come in with this winning mentality. Maybe you go after a Brady Tkachuk. I'm going to continue to bring it up. We're going to have another video on it, but I wonder if they give the captaincy to somebody right away to kind of just galvanize the group a little bit and say, hey, you know what, let's get going now. So it's interesting. I'm not sure if I would do that, but interesting concept for sure. And in terms of the return, obviously 4th round pick, and Vakinen, I believe is how you pronounce his name, 14 points last season with the Anaheim Ducks. This is just a depth player. Obviously, this is just a salary cap move, I believe. The trade was really just to offload Jacob Trouba and the Anaheim Ducks taking on the full salary. And if you look at the Anaheim Ducks, they could use some experience on their blue line. They obviously have Radko Gudas, but I guess they believe that they could use Jacob Trouba as well. So very interesting. And this was a long saga that has now come to an end. And obviously, there's going to be a lot of fallout, and there's some other moves that I believe Chris Drury is going to make. He could even make them today, but I feel like things will simmer down here as they play the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight. But they are off tomorrow. Some stuff could be popping off tomorrow, so we will see about that. And the New York Rangers are currently on pace for $27 million in trade deadline cap space. Pretty, honestly, tidy work by Chris Drury here to do exactly what he said he was going to do, which I have to, you know, say what you want about Chris Drury. I've been critical of him in the past, but he said he was going to do something, and he was trying to do something, and he did exactly that here with the Jacob Trouba trade. So it's going to be very interesting. And like Ryan says here, I think it's safe to say that Drury is not done. He wants a full roster shakeup. He's just beginning here, and I think that's exactly what everyone is going to get at this point in time. But let me know what you think in the comments of the Jacob Trouba trade, and if there are any other trades you believe are going to happen. I think that Ryan Lindgren could be next on his way out. It's going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.